us up there. Are
Yeah.
you getting like traffic from the contest?
Not that I can tell. Nobody said
Oh,
anything
really?
about that. Yeah, no noticeable uptick or anything.
That's so interesting. I mean, like you'd think that like millions of people are looking at that information, aren't they?
I have no idea what their numbers are. Be cool though.
Who is this? It's Yugo, right? What is it again that
No,
you?
this is Parsec.
Who's Parsec? Who's
Parsec
running it?
is a excuse me. It's just an award for speculative fiction podcasts.
Oh, but everybody there's novels and short fiction and all that stuff too.
Yep, there's
Yeah.
novels, there's short fiction, there's I found out later, sorry, that there's channels like yours, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Just talking
I
to
didn't
authors
realize
and
that at
whatnot?
first. I thought it was all
What?
stories, but apparently not.
Oh, it's interesting. That's interesting. So, I mean, it's just fascinating, man. Can you get into the guild now? How does
The
that work?
guild?
Are you in the guild?
I don't know
Science
what you mean by
fiction,
guild.
science fiction. I mean, the people that are in where you're being nominated for, they're all like, there are certain publications and certain organizations that you can get into that count as credit towards getting admission into the Science Fiction Writers Guild, which is very on
Oh,
par with like the Writers Guild in Hollywood or something along those lines. It's a guild that protects the members from being treated badly. You know, that's why there's a set rate of like 6 cents a word or something along those lines for a lot of the publications, because that's that's like the minimum amount that qualifies them to get them up there. But you don't even charge anything. You don't pay anything.
right.
It's interesting that, I mean, because I think that's one of those prestigious awards. But then again, I might be talking on my ass. I didn't do any research.
I don't know. I'll look into it now that I know about it.
Right, I need
I
to
didn't even
start
know that was
looking
a
into it too.
thing.
I'm realizing as I'm talking, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I don't know. I thought I saw some pretty interesting names like Clark's World or With You and things like that, right?
I I I think Clark's World was no. I'm thinking of
Who's
Cast of
nominated with you?
Dreams. There was Cast of Dreams. I can pull it up. I've actually got it saved right over here. Where did it go? I seem to have lost my link. Where did I put it?
Of course, because you need it right now.
There it is. 2018 nominees.
Who's the novel? If you can see it.
What's that?
Who's the novel? The guy, the people that are not. Isn't Scalzi nominated on that list? I mean, I know I had it up too. Why am
For
I asking you?
novels?
I have computers. I have the internet. 2018 Parsec Awards. It's not that this is what our podcast is going to be about. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Robert Asprin.
Yeah.
Just curious. It was just something on my mind.
There we go. I'm going up against Cast of Wonders, Seminar, Escape Pod, LeVar Burton reads, which, you know, he's the Reading Rainbow guy, and also Geordie LaForge, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't get his in. Oh, so I guess I'm not going up against him or Cast of Wonders because they didn't get their stuff in time.
Oh, interesting. So what? Did you win? There's only one other person against you?
Well, no, there's also Rude Alchemy, Toasted Cake, Smirk, Uncanny Magazine Podcast.
Uncanny. There you go. That's the name
That's right.
that just qualified you on a level that I can't even believe you're qualified on. Uncanny is one of those. They are actually a qualifying magazine for the SF.
Yeah, they've won this thing many times. Apparently, they've got it like several years in a row.
They've got a really good production. They actually have like a podcast set up in a way where they tell you the story eventually, but they actually tell you the story of the story and then the story of the publication that the story is in. And they're geared towards people with special needs, handicapped individuals and stuff like that. I
didn't know that.
Think they suffer from muscular dystrophy. A family member, a loved one, a child, something like that. There's like a horrible thing happening in their family they have to deal with. Yeah, it's pretty tough. I mean, it's not like, you know, you're obviously, people appreciate what you're having to go through as well, which I see people comment on. But my story got a comment like that. I was like, wow.
Nice.
Do you get that a lot where people are kind of reaching out about what brought you to the audiobooks?
Occasionally. I mean, I had that one interview with IO9 a long time ago, and that definitely was all about that. But I'll occasionally have somebody ask about that in like a personal email or, you know, on Twitter or something like that, but not too often.
I mean, reading for the
Mostly,
blind, right? I mean, basically, that's what we're talking about. That's where you came from. You were being
yeah,
read to because you were blind. When I
yeah.
was going through college, I did some volunteering work at WUSF, reading magazines and stuff that went out over the radio to be read to the blind or whatever. It's hardcore.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Robert Asprin is what brought you here, actually, huh?
Yes, tonight is about Robert
That's
Asprin.
the whole reason that you're doing what you're doing is Robert Asprin. Let me just do
Yes.
let me just throw out a quick introduction so I
Okay.
can tack it on to the beginning or whatever where this is going to end up. Let's see. So, welcome to Mirage. This is Brian Yellow, and today Chris Herron is joining me, and we're going to be speculating on Robert Asprin. And basically, we just had a little bit of conversation about where you're doing in terms of the Parsec Awards. And I knew nothing about it, and turns out you're pretty prestigious, dude. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good.
It's
Just
nice to have
hanging
you on.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's absolutely
good to
cool.
be
So,
here again.
who's Robert Asprin to you?
So Robert Asprin is one of those guys that I read back when I was younger. Same time period as the last podcast that we did together, where I was talking about Pierce Anthony.
Uh-huh.
But I've continued to read him all the time. I still read him
Do you really?
because,
Okay. He's
yeah,
passed in
his
2008, so he's not putting out any new stuff unless through
I do
magic.
believe that somebody took over the book series. I've only read the first 10 or 11, something
Oh,
like that.
interesting. So he's got somebody writing his book series under a different name.
Yeah, the Myth
So
Adventures book series.
interesting.
The about the last half of them, he had gone through a period, and this is why I've only read half. Is about halfway through, he stopped writing for 7 years.
Yeah, something to do with taxes, right? I mean, he had legal problems.
Oh, was it?
It
I
seems
don't
like,
know.
yeah, he had
I just
conversations with the IRS who were basically telling him, "You should probably write so you could pay us."
yeah, I thought he was just I didn't know if he had passed away or if he was just done writing the series or what, but nothing came out for several years, so I just stopped looking, and it wasn't until recently that I realized he came back eventually.
That's what's fascinating about this guy, right? Because he did die very young in 2008, which would put him what at 57 years old, something along those
Yeah.
lines,
He
right? I
looked a
mean,
lot older than that, but yeah, he
and
wasn't
I
that
mean,
old.
there's some pictures of him on Wikipedia, his shirts, unbuttoned down to his, solar plexus or whatever. So, I mean, this is an
Oh
interesting guy.
yeah.
Going
He was
in, you see it?
Yep, I know what you're talking about. I've seen that picture. Um,
So, I mean, that's my impression. He died young and he looked crazy. What are the novels? I mean, what are we talking about here? They said fantasy and science fiction is what he writes, but
yeah.
let's break down the science fiction. What kind of science fiction is it?
So I've only read his Myth Adventure series, which
Okay, that's
is
the science fiction one.
well, it's
Oh, there's
primarily
two science.
fantasy,
Okay, let's talk about the
but
fantasy one then.
it
What kind of fantasy?
I guess you could call it a sci fantasy because there's
Oh,
science
okay.
fiction rolled into it, but it's mostly a fantasy. If you had to boil it down to one or the other, it's like 80% fantasy.
Is the other series the same? Do you know, or is it you're just completely have no clue?
I have no clue about his other series.
Oh, okay.
I honestly didn't even know he had some until recently.
Science fiction fantasy. I mean, obviously, Star Wars comes to mind immediately. But then
Yeah,
again, Star Trek is considered science fantasy as well. Anytime you put like mythical technology behind something that, what do they call it? Phil Bottom. What's that term, dude? It's like a thing, fake technology thing. I've
right.
already asked you this 1,000
Um,
times. Philobodium or something like that.
I can't remember. I'm sorry.
It's just a made up word that means something
I only talk for a living. You
special.
can't expect me to know words.
Here it is. It's an impossible or imaginary device which is used to move forward the plot of a TV show, book, or film, especially in science fiction and fantasy. And you know what I'm going to do? Since you're the smart guy who likes to
You,
talk things
you
out
talking about
loud,
MacGuffin?
no, it's totally something different. I'll send
Oh,
you
okay.
the link to the page that I'm on right now. This is, I mean, basically, let's say you want to operate your warp drive, right? Back in
Okay.
the original series, they needed the lithium crystals, right? And that would be the equivalent of what I'm talking about.
Gotcha.
And I mean, you say Philobatium. I'll let you pronounce it. Where the hell is Hangouts? There it is. getting into the habit again of not starting a timer.
Oh no.
Yeah. I sent you a link in Hangouts if you could see it.
Okay, yep, I saw that.
And that is talking about, because I mean, he is considered fantasy, right? He's science fiction and fantasy on his Wikipedia page. And you're saying science fiction fantasy is mixed within this particular series. And I just sent you
Right,
the
but
link
it's
so you
mostly
could see
fantasy.
like what that term is in terms of, can we classify his work as just completely fantasy, or is the science fiction actually working on principles that, I don't know, like Isaac Newton or Einstein or like Stephen Hawkins wrote math about or whatever.
In this series here?
Yeah, the one that a myth.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got a little bit lost there. Um,
Sorry.
so it's only got science fiction in so much that it's multiple dimensions.
Mm,
So the premise in a nutshell is basically you start out with this character and he's in a backwoods kind of world where magic is a thing, but it's not much of a thing. It's kind of medieval period and stuff like that.
okay.
And he wants to be a thief. Well, he's starving and he comes across a magician in his hut, tries to steal from the magician, ends up becoming his apprentice. And then basically what happens is he's getting an argument with his master at some point, and the master's like, fine, I will show you some real magic. And he starts doing all this fair and all this, uh, putting candles in a pentagram and boiling cauldrons and whatnot. And then an assassin shows up and kills the guy right in the middle of summoning a demon. Demon pops out, scares the crap out of the kid, and then starts talking, kind of like almost a New York gangster from, the old movies or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, what the heck is going on? Turns out that there's all these different worlds, and they were just kind of pulling a prank on this kid because he doesn't know anything. Well, the master and this demon, whose name is Oz, were always pranking each other at the same time, that they would always summon each other to kind of impress the newbies.
Yeah.
And so Oz is left without his powers and has to train the kid to get back home. And so that way, Skeeve, the kid, becomes Oz's apprentice. And they go through
Awesome.
this whole thing and eventually end up on these other worlds, some of which have high technology, some don't. So it's just this whole kind of hodgepodge of whatever he wants to do, he can.
Like, I obviously don't read anything at all, being being whatever subjects on this podcast. I have never touched it with my reading abilities. But I mean, it almost sounds like Wizard of Oz, right? I mean, it does sound like he doesn't
They
even
make
try
that
to hide
joke.
it. Oh, they
Yeah,
do.
he's like, no relation. It's like, what do you mean no relation? No relation. There's a lot of pop culture references, going
Okay.
all over the place. A lot of puns. Well, not a lot of puns, not like Pierce Anthony level puns, but there's the occasional pun.
So
You know,
interesting. So I mean, this is kind of like that third author that we've talked about that kind of does that thing, huh? Because he wrote a lot of books as well in these worlds. These 200-page, like real quick reads. He's putting them out every other year, right? Or every year, or every 6 months.
I don't remember how long apart they were. It seemed to be like every year, I think. Um, but
But
yeah,
this
he
was your
doesn't have.
stuff, though. This is what you liked growing up. You liked
Yeah,
that.
this is what I
Yeah.
love growing up. And one thing I love about the books, and one reason I still read them, is they're so short. They take about 3 hours to read at a regular reading pace. So if I'm going to the doctor's office, I'll take one of these. If I'm, sick in bed, I'll read 4 of these while I'm sick. So I've gotten through the first 5 books of the series probably about 8 times.
Interesting.
But
So I mean,
yeah,
what's so compelling about it for you? Is it just a warm, comfortable bath, like a remembrance of your youth, or is
that's
it actually
definitely
like really, really good writing that I am missing? I'll probably not be able to dive into it, will I? But I mean, is
definitely
it
a bit
just
of
really
both.
good writing? Okay.
I mean, one thing is you can, after you've read it, you can definitely turn your brain off while you're reading it. So it's not something that you have to pay close attention to. You don't feel bad if
Interesting.
you put the book down because it's not, I have to get back to the story kind of book. But the guy is really good at having a solid plot structure. He has all the points that you need to hit to make it fun the entire way through, even if you've read it before. You know what's coming, but it's still satisfying when you get there. And the
Interesting.
characters are really well fleshed out, and a lot of the dynamics, or not dynamics, a lot of the I guess gimmicks with the magic and stuff like that, and the different locations. It's really creative. It's he's got some really great imagery in there as well. So it's solid. It's really solid, but it's not the highest quality that you'll ever find or anything like that. It's just really good.
Well, he made the New York Times bestseller list, so I mean, other people must have
Yeah.
agreed with you.
Oh, definitely. It's a very popular series from what I understand.
His bibliography is so extensive that Wikipedia can't do anything more than a partial.
Oh,
I don't
really?
understand. Yeah, that's what it says, partial bibliography, which is very frustrating, right? Because then you wonder what's missing.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's, yeah, Myth Adventures, what are we talking about? 20 novels, maybe, give or take?
Yeah, it's a little
Interesting.
over 20 to my
And
understanding.
two of them have been published posthumously, right? 2008, he had
Uh,
published.
yeah, I do believe somebody else took it over, so maybe that's only 20 some odd that he wrote in. And I know that a lot of them he co-wrote. A lot of his writing is actually
Like, right.
co-writing.
Jody Lynn Nye is who he co-wrote
Yes.
with.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And she just pops up in 2003
I
at the
believe
end of
they did
his quote
Thieves
unquote
World
stuff.
together, or maybe it wasn't her. He did Thieves World with somebody, and I haven't read that, but that's one that I did want to pick up. I just kept forgetting to get around to it.
But you've reread every single one of these books a million times, but you never moved on from them to the other series.
Well, I've read the first 10, of which the first 5 I've read the most, because about that time is when I get back to real life and then set them down for another couple of months.
Oh, I see.
But I didn't know about the ones that came after his hiatus, so I actually haven't read those. So I do need to go and get those and put those in my collection so I can get around to them.
When did we
But
decide that he took a sabbatical? Was it 1990
I think it
or no,
was.
1993? 1993. Yeah, I
It
see it
was in the
now.
early '90s. Either way.
And he came back in 2001 with a chronologically set between. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a whole sentence with the title. Myth, Iron, Improbable, 2001, chronologically set between Myth Directions and Hit or Myth.
Yeah.
So yeah, you didn't read it, so it didn't matter. So you read the first 10 up to 1993 potentially,
Yeah.
and then beyond that, you didn't read any of them. Oh, interesting covers.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of different covers that have been done over the years. So I've got
I
like
like this. Oh, it's
3 or
very
4 different
compelling.
editions of the first book.
What do you think sold you on this? What do you the covers? When you look at this, is this a compelling story based on, I don't know, can you look at another fine myth on Wikipedia and pull up the cover? If
I've
you
got it right
can't,
beside
it's
me.
okay, cool. So it has that. What the hell is that? Is it a species? A dragon species? I mean, this is my
Uh,
interpretation of it,
are you
right? I mean,
looking
you
at
have a
like
pretty
a
girl.
guy with 3
Ooh,
tails?
there's a pretty girl, and she's scantily clad, right?
Yeah,
She's
that's
got all the
Tanda.
tropes.
Her name
Panda,
is Tanda or Tananda, Tanda for short, and she's a trollop, which means she's actually a troll. She's a female troll, and the male
interesting.
trolls look like trolls, so they
So there's a
usually go
male
off
troll
world.
next to her. That's a male troll, the green thing.
No,
Oh,
no, the
really?
green thing is Oz, and he's from the world of Perv, which
Perv.
everybody calls him a pervert. You know, it's like I'm not a
It's your,
pervert,
it's
I'm a
not tongue in cheek
pervert.
now. He's deliberately going for that perv thing.
Yeah, yep. It's constantly coming up because it's kind of a trigger for him. Where like Skeeve, the human there, he's from Claw, and so he's a Clod. You know, they're not all puns like that, but
Yeah.
that's where a lot of the puns come in, is little things like that.
Well,
Whereas
he
Pierce
is
Anthony,
wearing,
the entire world was puns. You know,
yeah.
everything was a pun.
Well, that dude's wearing a Speedo, though. I mean,
Yeah, he
I don't.
wasn't in the story.
Oh, he wasn't in the story. That wasn't a part of it.
No,
Like, hey, my Speedo.
no,
And he's
he's actually got
barefoot,
a high sense of fashion. So
but he's wearing a Speedo on the cover.
yeah,
That's
they
very
wanted to get
interesting.
across the scaly nature. And then
That's
the
horrible,
dragon is great.
right? I mean, God, that's horrible. That's bad. This guy was successful. This guy took a break because he was making enough money. That's what his Wikipedia said. He was
Oh,
broke in 1993 and couldn't make money.
wow.
He had 2 books on the New York Times bestseller list, and he was broke. Like he was not being able to make enough money to earn, to make a living, which is interesting because
Jeez.
he died at 59 from heart attack. So you think he had other issues? I
I don't
mean,
know.
it's kind of sounding like maybe he had some drug problem at one point or another, right?
Could be.
You're
I
on the
mean,
New York Times bestseller list in
I have
'93,
an
and you're not making
I
enough
have an
money.
uncle who did a lot of acid, looked a lot like his older pictures. So
But acid, yeah, man, I guess you could do that, but it's not really necessarily going to make you lose your career at 93.
I'm not
You
saying
know,
that he did acid or anything like
I
that. I'm
keep
just saying he looks
losing.
like my uncle who was doing acid.
Yeah,
But
I like I mean, it's interesting. It's too bad that it's not what the story's about, right? So this wouldn't be disappointing. Maybe stores were like that. God, I can't remember picking a book with a cover. I've been on Kindle for so long.
Yeah, I usually pick books by cover.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's just kind of always been my kind of method. But
So how did you get into
sometimes it works.
Robert Asprin? Did you discover him, or was he discovered for you?
I can't remember. That
Oh
was
yeah.
when I was in elementary school.
Oh, seriously, that
So
long ago.
yeah, that long ago. I
So I
can't
mean,
remember.
does he flavor? How does he flavor your writing? How does he
Oh,
flavor your enjoyment of? Yeah.
his sense of humor feels not quite as heavy-handed as like British humor, like Terry Pratchett, but it's really well developed, and they are humorous books. The books are comedies, and so I mean, I only write comedy for the most part. I very rarely step outside of that, and he was kind of my early introductions between him and a little bit of Pierce Anthony, who wasn't as much comedy. Those were my two introductions to fantasy and comedy. But so that's where I tend to write, and
It's interesting.
probably
I want to see where he grew up, and it looks like Michigan, and he died in New Orleans, which kind of fits that whole maybe drug thing, right? I mean, maybe I
maybe.
don't know.
I don't know.
2008, man, that was like
Well, I know he was a LARPer, so maybe he got skewered. I'm not sure.
when did New Orleans happen? When did the dikes break? Was it 2008-ish? Wasn't it around that same time frame?
Could be. I do remember hearing that he died the day that he died, and it was not around any natural disaster, at least that I can
No,
remember.
yeah, it doesn't seem like it. I mean, not like he died specifically because of results of that. I'm saying that maybe it should just suck then, and it
No,
was
it could
harder to
be.
live or something. I don't know. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
depression.
2008. I mean, God, New Orleans is still kind of recovering. I thought for sure the whole city was going to be done. I told my mom when it happened. I just happened to be there when, that it went bad. It's like, dude, we just saw the loss of an American city. No more New Orleans.
Yep.
It's unfortunate. I mean, I thought we lost downtown New York during our hurricane
Yeah.
situation. It was disgusting. We drove through it. Brooklyn got it worse, but man,
Oh,
with
really?
climate change, dude, yeah, it was really, really bad. A lot of historic places got destroyed, like
Ah,
never to open again. There's this really great pizza place right off Coney Island that thankfully is still open. It's one of the best in the city, but it's still different. You know what I mean? Everything is not the same.
yeah.
Ovens really play a big part in that kind of stuff. And Coney Island's gone. I mean, if you've ever been, have you been to New York?
No, never been out that far.
It's totally different. I mean, just they had to rebuild everything, I think.
Ugh,
Everything
jeez.
got washed away. So, I mean, New Orleans during that time, I don't know, right? But he died of a myocardial infarction, which I imagine is a
Oh
massive
yeah.
heart.
Yeah, and I think he actually had I heard that he had a copy of one of Terry Pratchett's books in his
Yep.
hands when they
Yeah.
found him.
Yep. That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
That's
That's the
interesting.
way to go.
I guess, right? I mean,
Like
he
what I
wasn't
do if
upset.
I'm doing something like that.
Oh my God. Can you imagine if he had a heart attack because he was laughing his ass off? Just enjoying the hell out of the writing or whatever. Just a big fan.
Yeah.
He was a fan. I mean, that's another thing I gathered from his Wikipedia page
Yeah.
is that he was a big fan of stuff. I don't know what it's was a fan of necessarily. Unfortunately, it doesn't really tell you that. What does he say? Was an American science fiction and fantasy author and active fan. Thank you. I guess he was an active
Okay.
fan of being science fiction and fantasy, right?
I
I mean, what
suppose.
else? I and his humorous myth adventures and how do you say it? Is it Flules Company?
Oh, fools? I think it's fool.
Fools. Okay. So it's that
'Cause
F sound for the PH.
I believe so. That's how I've heard it said.
Well, that's
But
his other series. That's the one that you did not bother to pick up.
yeah.
So you're
Yeah,
not
I
a true
haven't.
fan. You're not an active fan.
I know. I need to be
You're not an
better.
active fan. This is ridiculous. Why do you pick subjects that you're not an active fan of? I want to know what active fan. I want to know what active fan is. Am I an active fan of anything? Do you need to do anything to be an active fan? You know what I mean? What's a
Uh,
passive fan? Is that just something that you're aware of that you're not actually pursuing an interest in? How are you an active fan? I don't know Wikipedia. That really bothers me. I might have to go back to Britannica. Aren't they going online now? I think they are.
are they?
I
I
think
didn't know
so.
they were still a thing.
They are not becoming a thing. They're closing their print um, business side of things, I think. I think they're going online though. I think they're going to directly compete with Wikipedia, but I don't know how you do that now. Right? I
They
mean, you're
didn't
about
try it.
10, 15 years late for that. Like, you're going to make good decisions after the fact. Like,
I
you've already
remember,
got shot in the head and then you're going to duck. You know what I mean? That's just
yeah.
called falling dead. That's not doing anything really at that point. So I don't know. What are they going to do though? I mean, obviously, if they're still a business, they're not a nonprofit. They're going to have to charge money for people to check out their stuff. Who in their right mind is going to pay them a subscription fee to view their encyclopedias? I
Yeah, I
don't
think
know.
this is the second time they've tried it, and the first
Oh,
time they
really?
did have a cost of some sort,
I
and it
can't see
was
them doing it for free because they
yeah,
charge for their encyclopedias, right?
yeah, I guess.
I mean, they weren't
Like I
free.
said, I know they were still around, so
I mean, I guess maybe you could have gotten them from some kind of mail order thing and never paid for them. They were one of those ridiculous things, right? In the mailers. I don't know.
we got them from door-to-door salesmen when I was a kid. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that was a thing. I remember the encyclopedia or salesman. I never had one come to our house. We had a vacuum salesman come
yep, yeah,
and we
those two.
bought it because we
My
were
dad bought
stupid.
one.
Did you? It was a
Yep,
good
my dad
vacuum
did.
cleaner, I think. I don't know. I don't know. Those are gone. Sales, door-to-door salesmen. Right? They're not coming to sell me encyclopedias or vacuum cleaners.
I
And
still get
I
one
haven't had
occasionally.
I haven't had a Harry Krishna person come in a long time either. What are they called?
Jehovah's Witness, you mean?
Jehovah's Witness. Yeah, I've not had one of those come and knock on my door,
It's like
or
I think the
Mormon for
Hare
that matter,
Krishna
man.
are in God, what the heck? Um, I don't think they're in America as a big
No, they are
organization
though,
like
because
that.
I've seen them here. I've seen them all
Oh,
over the
really?
place,
Have you?
actually.
Okay.
Oh, they
You're
used
not
to be on
thinking
the University of
Hasidic Jew, are
Florida
you?
campus. What?
You're not thinking Hasidic Jew, are you?
No, absolutely not. Hasidic
Okay.
Jews are very obvious, and we have those all
Yeah.
over up here. But no, down in Florida on University of Florida campus, every day at like noon, there would be this group of Hare Krishna people. They'd wear the orange
Really?
gowns and they'd have the shaved scalps and they had little braids. They'd give a free vegetarian lunch that absolutely gave me the shits one day, and I never tried it again. But I was still an experience I have. I mean, they
That's
tried to get you
cool.
literature, and it was so horrible, dude. I mean, I'm a McDonald's guy. I can't stand stuff like that.
Too much of
As
a shock, huh?
sustenance, yeah, man, it was not good. I don't even remember what it was. I didn't eat it. It looked very scary, and there were no utensils or I don't know. I'm not going to be Jehovah's Witness. The whole thing is very bizarre. Why are we talking about that again?
I have no
No,
idea.
Fool's Company is not Hare Krishna, is it, or Jehovah's Witness?
I don't think so.
Aren't they interchangeable, the terms Hare Krishna and Jehovah's Witness, or are they not?
Oh, are they?
Is one of them derogatory? Am I making fun of them with the Hare Krishna term or something?
If we are, it's not intentional.
Yeah, right. I have no clue. It's ignorance completely. I don't think that's an excuse anymore, though.
I
I
thought
think
they
you're
were
supposed
completely
to.
different,
Yeah,
but
like I don't know. Maybe they are. I'm not going to look it up though, because
I don't know.
for some reason we're talking about it, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Back to
So
Robert.
back to Robert Asprin. He's got an interesting name. I wonder if he has
So
any relation to the Asprin family.
I didn't know that was a family.
I
Well,
don't
other
know
than,
either. I mean, obviously
obviously it's
there
a
had to
last
be
name.
because his name is Asprin, but
A
I wonder.
prestige family.
Yeah, prestige family. It's a
One of the things that I really like about his writing, though, is he's very good at putting a little twist at the end of everything.
okay.
It's kind of like with J.K. Rowling. You always get the ending, and it's like, oh, that was really satisfying, or I
Riveting.
didn't see that
Yeah.
coming. He's pretty good at laying the groundwork for things to kind of just come together like that. Not always, but a lot of the time.
No, that's nice, right? I mean, that's what you aim
Yeah,
for when you write as a payoff to suck people into the next chapter and make them want to flip that page. I mean, there's nothing more irritating than being exhausted and
yeah,
knowing that time is slowly evaporating before you have to wake up the next morning and that stupid author who wrote that book in your hands keeps laying out that last part of that chapter in a way that makes you want to read more. You can't put it down. I love it so much. You know what I
yeah.
mean? That's what you aim for, and that's fantastic. I mean, what was the twist exactly? Can you put your finger on it and kind of define it, or no?
Oh, in different books.
Yeah, or just generally. I mean, you say he puts a twist on things. I mean, was it
Um,
kind of specific, or was it just something general each
Okay,
time?
so like in the very first book, like I said, these are sometimes minor, but they're still really satisfying. It's like, I see what you did there. In the first book, when Oz lost his powers and had to stick around to be this guy's apprentice, they found out eventually that it was because the old master had used some joke powder that
Yeah.
would take away your powers temporarily, and then you give them the antidote, and they're fine. Well, since he died, they couldn't find the antidote. He was stuck. They eventually go to the Bazaar at Diva, which is off-world, and it's this marketplace that just extends off as far as you can see in all directions, and you can find anything there, and it's just kind of this giant spectacle. They eventually find a guy selling the same stuff, says there's nothing he can do for them, and they leave. Well, they get to the final boss, you know, the guy who sent the assassin in the first place, and they're, you know, going to fight this guy, and they're ramping up for this big battle, and then, you know, they kind of start talking, and it's like, well, we already won. It's like, what do you mean? Well, I put this joke powder in your wine, and now you have no powers. And so it was a lot better than the way that I just described it. But it kind of brought together these little, you know, red herrings and, you know, things like that throughout the entire book, and brought it all together at the ending. And there was a climax, but, you know, it was at the end when everybody's about to die kind of thing.
But you said you discovered this guy in elementary school too. So are they middle grade fiction that he's writing, or something
You
more
could probably in middle school,
middle
possibly even
school,
elementary.
elementary school? So they're young reader books.
Not necessarily.
No.
Uh, I do think that they're just written at an easy level. I mean, they say that if you can write as close to a second grade level as you can, you'll have a wider base. You know, I know that sounds ridiculous, but after second grade, you can read most stuff. It's just some stuff will slow you down. So if you're not using a lot of big words and you're using, you know, relatively easy sentence structure and stuff like that, then you can keep along with this. But it's by no means juvenile or anything like that. But you could follow it as a kid. There's nothing in there that is um, like racist or derogatory or anything like that.
It's very interesting, right? I mean, this is one of those authors that if you don't discover, you don't know about. He
Possibly, yeah.
doesn't he doesn't hang out very long. He wrote a lot, constantly writing. Every 2 years he puts out a novel. 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. There's consecutive years, every one a year. 90 and then 93. Then he took his gigantic break. So he was never really prolific, right? I mean, he wrote one occasional novel for what's 78 and 93? 15 years, something like that. He wrote
Um,
10.
I guess. I
Took a
just know
break.
that when I was a kid, my candy store was the used bookstore and also the new bookstore, and they would always
Oh,
have a
interesting.
decent section for Robert Asprin. So
They
he
would
was
have
on the bookshelves.
he was on the bookshelves with 10
Yeah.
books. As a
Mostly with
kid,
I
though,
think.
you were a kid
I,
in what?
what's
2000.
that?
You were a kid in the early millennials.
I was born in '83. So yeah,
83,
I would have been finding his books in the late '80s and early
early
'90s.
90s. Okay, so he was still
Yeah.
those books were the only ones that were available until 2001.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, he had a section on the. In fact, I think he still has a section in Barnes and Noble. I think I saw him the other day.
And you're Colorado.
Yeah, I'm in
So I mean, it's
Colorado.
not regional. I mean, it has nothing to do with Colorado, so that can't be the reason. I've never heard of him. Other people, have you talked to other people into science fiction and fantasy have mentioned him to you as being one of those dudes?
My wife knew about him.
Oh, interesting.
My
What'd she
best
say?
friend knew about him.
I
She
asked my
loves
wife
him.
if she didn't know anything about him. She'd never
Oh,
heard of him. But she was
yeah.
like, when did she read him?
When she was in like middle school and high school.
Same time frame.
So,
She's about your age as well.
yeah, she's 1 year younger than me. So,
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I mean, I did not know about him, but then again, I was one of those dudes that didn't really aim for a specific author. I just kind of read whatever was in the library. I like to get a bunch of stuff. I never read anything by him, unfortunately. Um, but there's not a lot here either. Like if you look at Wikipedia, it's very interesting that he went to college at the University of Michigan for a single year, right? And
hmm.
then he was in the military for a single year.
Huh.
And then he had two kids, and I don't even know if he was married when he died because it doesn't say anything about who his wife was or his children when you look at his little brief bio here. Um, and
I
the
know there's
question
like
is,
almost no video of the guy.
oh, there's not. You looked. Okay, good. That's interesting. I wanted to hear him talk.
There's like one or two videos, but
What
that's
was
like
it?
all you can find.
Just a little bit of an interview, like a marketing thing.
No, one of them was he was talking about, I want to say, I can't remember if it was Dagger here or the SCA. I want to say the SCA, which is one of those LARPing groups where you go out and you pretend that you're, fighting with axes and swords and stuff like that. He was a big part of that.
Oh,
And
he
then
was big
another
into
one,
LARPing.
yeah, yeah. And then another one was he was on a panel. I think it was, no, it couldn't have been 2008. It had to be before that because 2008 was he died. But I think it was Dragon Con or one of those. But he was on a panel of some sort. But
And you
yeah,
saw his panel? Oh no, the video. I'm sorry.
the
I
video,
was
yeah,
reading. I was just reading about his later work, wondering. I mean, he is kind of a mystery. There is not a
yeah.
lot here. I mean, Wikipedia is starting to really disappoint me. Let's view the history. Maybe there's some legit stuff there that got deleted. I don't know, man. What do you think? He's going to end up being around for a while. You say he's still in Barnes and Noble. People are still reading him. You're recommending him to me. Do you think I should give him to my kids? You think I should
Sure.
give him to my kids as an? I mean, time is the only finite thing, right? A novel
Yeah.
takes a week, so you'd be taking a week's worth of time for one of my children from their life. You'd be murdering a week. Is it worth it?
I would say so. Especially if they read at a normal pace, it won't take a week. It'll take a night.
A day, 3 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's interesting. He died of a heart attack, and his last name is Aspirin.
That's bad. Now who's doing the puns?
Right? I mean, that's not good. Not good at all. What a legacy. I mean, you have to die. I mean, when your last name is Aspirin, you really do have to have aspirations not to die of a heart attack. That's the one thing I think you aim for. Because it just becomes too ridiculous at that point, right? Or a stroke or something, you have to die of something else. You have to. Cancer's fine. I don't know. Poor
Oh,
guy though, man. It
gee.
doesn't say anything about his wife and kids. But I think obviously somebody must have gotten the rights after his death because they're selling the book still. He is still they're producing rights for his Myth World or whatever. Must
You
be
know,
owned by somebody.
I know that I believe I read something a while back that his kids
Oh shit.
donated his rare book collection
Jody Lynn Nye
to.
is still writing these things.
Oh, is that who's doing
2016.
it?
Yeah.
That makes sense. She was co-writing them.
Yep.
Yeah,
So she's sole authoring them now.
gotcha. Yeah, most of his work, as far as I could tell, was co-authored, or at least about half of it.
Yeah, it starts in when he came back in 2003, she was with him the entire time. It's interesting. I wonder where she is. If it's New Orleans, I want to say they were hooked up. I think she was in Chicago though, or New Orleans. Oh, she ran a rare books and special collections at the University Library in Northern Illinois.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's probably why she got the books. The Myth series is the only thing she's written. No, she's got a bunch of other stuff. I mean, honestly, at this stage of my life, I don't understand how these authors have this many books. How are they able to produce? I mean, this is ridiculous. Oh, short stories. That makes more sense. She's crazy with the amount of work that she's produced, though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, she's really, really impressive.
I'm gonna have to
She
check
shouldn't
her out.
she shouldn't be second fiddle to him. But I think, I mean, obviously, this is not in alphabetical order, but the mythology series is number one in her works. I mean, what does that mean?
The Myth Inc. or the
Mythology.
Myth Adventure series or mythology series.
She has a mythology series.
Okay, that's got to be something different because these were
Yeah,
the
it's
Myth
something different.
Adventures.
It's 4 books that came out in the 90s. The last one was 2001. And the Myth Adventures is get a few. I don't know, but you never read the other series though.
Yeah,
And it's interesting because the only reason that you say science fiction is because of the dimensional aspects. But they don't
yeah.
really actually access the dimensional aspects without magic.
Well, yeah. I mean, they've got like this thing called a D hopper, which is just a little stick with dials on it, and you push the button, and it lets you hop through dimensions.
Oh, interesting.
Some of
So
them can
that's
do
the
it with
science.
magic.
That's
Well,
the
there's
science aspect. That's a physical element that makes it do it. Or whatever
there's that,
the
but like the assassin that comes in the first chapter, he kills the guy with a heat-seeking crossbow. Yeah. So it's like, that's not supposed to be allowed on this world. It's against the rules because he's got, future technology. But he'll
yeah.
travel to a place where he's like, doing deals with the mob. And then he'll be going to a world that is all about crazy soccer fans. And, I don't think it ever goes high sci fi, but there's definitely some, like, at least modern to slightly sci fi elements to it.
Do you think modern readers would tolerate this type of writing?
Yeah,
Or do they
I think
tolerate
so.
this type of writing? And if they do, who's writing like this nowadays? I think I asked you this before. Because I mean, this is kind of a Pierce Anthony. This is a kind of um
Slightly dated. Is that what you're going for?
well, obviously, yeah, it's dated, right? Because the people who do this stuff are dead. Typically, Pierce Anthony's the only one that's still kind of alive. Hitchhiker's
Right.
Guide to the Galaxy is dead. I mean, the dude whose name I can't remember right now for some reason, who did the Turtle World
Oh,
books.
Terry Pratchett?
Yeah, Perry Pratchett's dead. I mean, the only one that's still alive is Piers Anthony, right? He's still kicking it, or did he die too?
No,
Can't remember.
well, as far as I know, last time we talked about a month and a half ago, he was still alive.
Okay, I think that would make news.
I would hope so.
He's 83 years old though, so I mean, time is ticking. Who
Yeah.
else is writing? Who else writes like this? I mean, maybe we mentioned
Um,
Neil Gaiman last time too, but not really, right? Because Neil Gaiman is more
he's not
not
as
world like that.
complex.
Yeah.
I,
Oh,
I will
complex in the
say,
way of many volumes in the same world.
no, Neil Gaiman, his writing is just, uh, I mean, he's definitely a seat of the pants writer, and he has a lot of high concept stuff that he tends to block in together, and he's got uh, a style that I just find a little complex, I guess. I don't know how to
Oh,
describe
really
it.
interesting.
Robert Asprin, he's kind of by the book. It's like, you know exactly where the plot is supposed to go, and he ends up going there, but you don't know how he's going to get there or what it's going to do there. But it hits all those. It's like, this is Act One. Here's the parts in Act One. Here's Act Two. Here's the parts in Act Two. He does it by the formula that you're supposed to do it by, and his writing it would still hold up to modern standards. There's nothing wrong with it. There is a little bit of stuff where he makes some jokes that would not be acceptable
Oh, I see.
nowadays because
Because
of,
of
like,
race or
Tumblr
sex
and
or
whatnot. Yeah, it's mostly the one that I can think of, the trollop that you see on the cover there that was, kind of uh hot, I guess you would call her, whatever you want to say. She is very
I didn't
flirtatious.
think that, Chris. She's a
Okay.
drawing, and I'm joking.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, she's made to appeal.
Yeah, she's made to appeal to the guys. She's a trollop. I mean, that's part of the pun right there. But she's very flirtatious. All the guys are head over heels about her, stuff like that. So there's that little bit of sexism. And then there was a character who is extremely overweight, but she's in a world of overweight people, and she's overweight for them. So there's some fat jokes towards her character, but she ends up being one of the main characters, and everybody loves her, and they don't mind that she's this way. She's just, she probably weighs 600 pounds and wears the leotards and stuff like that. So there's some jokes that are made that would not be allowed in society today, but the writing itself could be written by anybody today.
Well, I would totally throw a 600-pound fat woman into one of my stories. I think that's a fantastic idea. I've played around with the idea of a gigantically obese. I don't really care about social conventions either. I
Yeah,
mean, I think that just would
having
be
the
a great human to explore in a story and give them something to work with. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
and there's
really
nothing wrong
interesting.
with having a character like that.
Not
It's
at
just
all.
the occasional joke, like
Mhm.
internalized joke that is made that, would be considered, oh, well, that's a faux pas in modern society.
I wonder though, do the novels kind of do the Smurf thing, or the standalone 22 minutes worth of cartoon is wrapped up neatly at the end? Yeah, they're all kind of unique and individual, and you're never going to say that one is the same as the other, but at the same time, the complexities aren't really there. You know what I mean? They're not going to resonate with you after you're finished. You're going to digest them and move on to something else very quickly. You know what I mean? Or do they have complexities that resonate more than
I'll,
a Smurf cartoon or something along those lines? Or is that even a fair question?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by Smurf cartoon.
But do you remember the Smurfs? I mean, like a cartoon in the 80s that was, I mean, they're bad now. Snorkels.
Right.
Something ridiculous. I mean, something that doesn't really have a lot of work going into it. 'Cause I think a lot of cartoons nowadays do. If you watch like Clone Wars or something along those lines, there's a progression of plot. There's a kind of what
But they're
resolve.
cookie cutter.
The ones in the 80s, I would say the Smurfs were
Right.
kind of cookie cutter. Because I mean, yeah, you had Gargamel trying to, did you watch the Smurfs as when you were growing up?
Occasionally.
So I mean, when you have Gargamel coming after
Yeah.
the Smurfs, I mean, he
Or
catches one. There's not going to
He-Man.
be any
Yeah.
PTSD because that Smurf was caught. You know what I mean? There's not
Right.
going to be a developing trauma because of the constant war they are at with this cat and man or whatever. But
Okay. I
like,
think I get what you're asking. So as the series progresses, there is no big worry about the characters. You're never like, oh my God, is this guy going to die? And it's definitely not like George R. R. Martin, where he's killing off characters right and left.
and
You don't
scarring
ever
them, right?
have
I mean,
that
you're
sense of
taking parts of
dread.
them. I mean, you're ruining
Yeah, it's
parts of the
definitely
main novel
lighthearted.
and then making them deal with that in the following novel. I mean, is this what's happening in his work?
Exactly. No, there's none of that. It's very lighthearted, but he does a lot of stuff that definitely keeps you interested. Like the magic system, the guy only knows a handful of tricks, but the amount of ways that he figures out how to combine them and the characters that he gets alongside of him and
Oh,
everything like that,
that's
it
fascinating.
really draws you through the books.
So I mean, what is that? That's a oh God, why is my brain not working tonight? What is it? I mean, when you have something a deficit, you're working against a deficit. How many spells or what can he do? Tell me about the magic that he works with.
Okay. So the spells that he tends to have is one, he can do a little bit of illusion on like faces. Eventually he learns that he can do it on most living things. So it's like he can make himself look like Oz, or he can make Oz look like himself, or anything like that. And they go into detail about how to do it. And it's very simplistic details to where you could imagine yourself doing it, which by the way, I love it when authors do that, because if you can imagine how it's done and how it would feel, you're way more likely to enjoy the book, in my opinion. That's kind of what Rothfuss did. Um, and then
Oh,
so
it's
he's
very
got that
true,
one.
right? I mean, he had a very physical way of working with magic, and the
Yeah,
limitations were physical too, right? Because he could very, very badly hurt himself by messing up
exactly.
or
And he
by
goes into
putting
the
too much of himself
Latani and all
into
that
it.
stuff,
Yeah,
where it's like the mental exercises he has to do, and the
those are
Heart of
danger
Stone,
too.
where
It's not
yeah,
just cut and dry. Yeah, I like that a lot too. I like that a lot.
yeah. Anytime an author does that, I just eat that up. But so he's got like this the illusion spell. He can levitate objects, usually small objects, and he gets a little bit better. He learns how to light a candle, which later he can start to light wood on fire and stuff like that. And he can levitate and make wards. And that's about it. And with that, he like beats entire armies and all sorts of crazy stuff.
I mean, it's fascinating because limitations are what make good conflict. Trying to figure
Yeah.
out a way to use what you have. I mean, it's MacGyver, right? I mean, I don't know about the new show. They canceled the reformatting of MacGyver. But I mean, that's why we watch MacGyver, right? He would do things crazy with what was just available, and that's what we want with
Exactly.
our adventurers when they don't have shit with them. The bag of
Yep.
holding from D&D is kind of like a cheat, isn't it? What's his
Yeah.
face? Nicholas Ames. I think he just won an award for his novel, The King of the Wild or whatever it was. He had a character with a bag of holding. He had every single trope convention you could possibly have in a fantasy novel, and I freaking loved that book so much. Loved
I've
it.
never
Got
read it.
sucked in. Oh man, you got to pick it up. King of the Wild, or Kings of the Wild. It's
Kings of the
really,
Wild.
really good. And he's got a
Write
sequel
that
coming
down.
out within the next few months or so called Bloody Rose or something like that. So you're almost 2 books behind. Catch up, man. Catch up.
I will do. Another
So
thing that pulls you through is that the characters are a little nefarious. They are definitely not too upstanding. I mean, they have morals. Oz definitely has no morals. He's all
that's what I'm
about the
saying,
money.
man. You got the guy in a freaking Speedo on the cover. Put him in a Speedo in the story. I want to wear a Speedo. I want to think of this scaly, Italian looking greasy thing just jiggling his way through the story, and you having to be forced to watch it. It's not good. Not good at all. But yeah, nefariousness. Everybody's kind of not good.
Not that they're not good. They're always wheeling and dealing. They're trying to talk you out of, your sword and your knife and your money and everything like that, and they'll spin a yarn to kind of convince you that you need to give them this stuff because it's better for you in the long run. And then you walk off with nothing but a bag that you think is a magic rock, and something happens to you. So that they're doing stuff like that all the time, and they're always making deals with opposing sides, and they're dealing with both sides at the same time, kind of halfway crossing everybody, but not quite enough to get in trouble. And they eventually work for the mob and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun because they're not the goody two shoes that you expect.
That's interesting. Because what's coming to mind is like chaotic neutral, or not chaotic neutral, maybe even true neutral, or Firefly. You know what I mean? They go where the jobs are. They'll take the job for the money. It doesn't matter who's offering it, basically.
Exactly. Yep. Even if somebody's already paid you to do the exact opposite thing.
I mean, people don't like the goody two shoes. The paladins or whatever, they're kind of made fun of. They're the foil or whatever. Kind of ruin everybody's fun.
Day.
I mean, you can have a paladin as an anti-hero nowadays because you kind of want the guy that's nefarious, don't you? That's going to wheel and deal.
Yeah.
That's not going to be telling the truth all the time. And a paladin will. I love the idea of a paladin, but this is not a paladin story. This isn't like an honorable group of people. No.
Nope. The guy wanted to be a thief. That's where you start out, is he wants to be a thief.
And I mean, I don't know if you could say that with Robert Asprin or not, that he wrote this series and that's all, because he's got a bunch of work, right?
Yeah, he's got a bunch of work. I just never read it. I'm sorry.
Do you know anything about, how it was? I mean, he's obviously got a Wikipedia page that's very incomplete. Doesn't really have a bunch of information. It doesn't break down the other novels, though. I mean, it lets you know how many books are in the series anyway. But the dude wrote a lot. Oh, selected short stories is why the bibliography is shorter than it could be. I have a feeling that's how he made his living. Yeah, there's probably a bunch more there that is not showing up. Other novels, I mean, he wrote a bunch, man. He struggled for money. What else did he struggle with? Was it alcoholism?
No idea.
Was it cocaine addiction? I mean, what caused this guy to stop writing in 1993 or not pay his taxes?
He died of a heart attack. Maybe it was McDonald's.
He was skinny. I mean, he was skinny fat. He does look skinny fat, doesn't he? I don't know. There's a picture of him here. The one with his blue shirt open to his belly button. Oh, dude. He was not an attractive guy, was he? Poor dude. And you could tell he wrote science fiction.
That's bad.
That's bad. No, I don't know. It's not a great picture. That's for damn sure. But I mean, it looks like it came from the 70s, and nobody looked good in the 70s. I got some pictures of myself in the 70s that don't look good, and I was like a baby for most of it. I don't know, man. So what is your thinking going into the end of the podcast? Thinking of Robert Asprin. Think people should read him for educational purposes, to be better writers? Is he going to offer anything in terms of philosophy or literary theory that'll help people become a better writer?
Well, if you need to learn how to do a little bit of comedy because you suck at it, he's kind of a good guy to learn some basics from. He's really good at imagery, like locations and stuff like that. And his plot structure is just phenomenal. He just pulls you straight through. You feel every single beat as it happens. So yeah, if you read him, you might learn a couple things, unless you've already got those under your belt. I mean, it's nothing much more than the basics and a little bit beyond. So it's not going to be this revolutionary thing that just, expands your mind in every direction. But if you're starting out, I think it would be a good way to get a handle of what a good story is, if that makes sense.
But they are body, though, right? I mean, they do have kind of the sexual thing happening with the trollop and
very little.
Very little.
Okay. You could read that in like middle school, and just kind of smirk. There's nothing, there's no sexual happenings at all. Just more, the main character is really attracted to her, and that's about it. She'll occasionally sit in his lap and kiss him on the neck or something like that, and then pop off because she's a bit of a tease. But there's no jokes about body fluids or body parts or anything like that.
Okay. So where do you go from Robert Asprin, man? I mean, you've led us on a nice little trail of interesting authors. Where do you go from Robert Asprin?
Well, I think looking back, my next big one was Robin Hobb.
Oh yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? I've never read any of
Yeah.
her either. I'm never gonna catch up. I need to retire and just read.
I'll say right now, if you don't have time, do not read Robin Hobb. She is an amazing author, but she writes very slow. Her books take forever to go anywhere, but if you're in the mood for that, there's nobody better. Her stuff is amazing, but if you can't take the time to just kind of expect to plod through a book, you're gonna get frustrated.
Do you want to do an hour on Robin Hobb?
Sure, I'd love to. She's one of my favorite authors.
Let's do it. What else do we want to mention about Robert Asprin? The unfortunately named Robert Asprin.
I'll say.
Do you think it's a nom de plume? Do you think it's a writer name? Do you think his real name was something else? It doesn't say it here, but like that's not even his real name, and he took Robert Asprin because it sounded cool. And
I don't know.
At the end of the day,
I've never thought of that.
If he had just taken some aspirin, he'd probably been okay.
I guess my final thoughts on Robert is I'd recommend anybody pick up his first book and try it. Like I said, you can read it in an afternoon, so it's not going to be a huge commitment. If you love it, you love it. Go to the next one. If you don't, well, it's not for everybody. So it's a really easy way to try an author. It's not a long book. I think the first one is like 170 pages or something like that, and it's small pages.
Right at like 45,000 words or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, I mean, I'm intrigued with his style, obviously. I mean, oh my God, dude. The caption under this photo says Aspirin in 1993.
Oh, so, the one with his shirt button down?
Yeah, so this picture was actually taken in the 90s.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody in the 90s was dressing well to begin with, but nobody in the 90s dressed like they came from the 70s either. The guy obviously had some problems.
Hey, ladies. In the 90s?
And you know what? He's rocking like 4 hairs on his chest. Like you could see him. He didn't shave his chest. He just has no hair on his chest, but these 4 hairs on his chest.
Oh my goodness.
Robert Asprin's my hero, dude. I mean, his name is Robert Lynn Asprin. Lynn. Right?
So I mean, it's probably not a nom de plume or a pseudonym or whatever you want to call it. It's probably his real name if it's got a middle name in there.
Well, I mean, not only that, but a horrible middle name. If you're gonna give yourself a middle name, make it like Axe Killer or like Bear Slayer or something crazy. Not Lynn. You know what I mean? Lynn's what you get into fights for in elementary school. What's your middle name? Lynn. All the kids jump on you. I don't know. All right, man. So what do you have coming up that people should be aware of?
So if everything goes as planned, this Monday, which will probably be before this launches for your podcast, my podcast launches.
Good for you, man.
I've finally gotten to that point.
I need to make sure that I subscribe to it. So if I don't like the link when you tweet it, send me a direct message so I can get a hold of it and retweet it and actually subscribe and stuff.
Yep, I'm going to be sending messages to all the authors that I've worked with, which you are included. So Perfect. That way they can get links to their stories and know when their story is going to come out if it hasn't already. Because I'm going to be dropping, I believe, 80 stories on the first day, and then over the course of a month for that 1 month thing with iTunes and whatever, I'll be putting like 3 a day for a while, and then 2 a day for a while, and then 1 a day for the last couple of days.
Wow! So you're dropping 80. Oh, so how are you going to do this? Because I know a lot of your episodes are small, 6-minute things. Are you going to do like an intro for each one, or are you just going to jump right into the show itself?
No, I'm just basically there's the little couple-second intro where it says the name of the channel.
Telltale
And
TV,
then,
yeah.
yeah, your podcast for sci-fi and fantasy short stories. And then it goes right into the story. Then it does the little author bio. And then for all of these backlogs, I've just got a couple of different stock, things of me saying, thanks for listening. Check out my or check out my newsletter here. Thanks for listening. Go to this place to do whatever. I've got a couple of those that I'm ending all of them with. But then once I get to where I'm current, I'm going to try to go and start doing longer segments at the end where I'm talking about the piece.
Oh,
But
interesting.
I can't do that for 146 episodes. It would just take too long.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm excited. It's about time, dude. Are you going to start publishing the stories too on your website, or are you just going to stick to the video format that you have currently going on?
What do you mean by publishing the stories? Like in a text?
Like Odin's Reward, you take the text of that and put it on your website as it being published. You take the first world serial rights to that story and you own it. Basically.
I haven't really thought of that. Mostly I was just an audio thing. I guess I could ask authors if they want me to put the transcription with it.
Might actually put you up on another level. I mean, for some reason, unfortunately, I read an introduction from the guy who does Clark's World. I think his name is Clark. I'm not actually sure what his name is, but he was talking about quality and how there's so many people jumping into the waters, like you and me and everybody trying to get attention, but quality suffers, right? But my train of thought just completely evaporated. What is it basically I was striving for? I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of people out there. What is it?
Speaking of quality, I'm just teasing.
Right? I mean, I never tried. So I mean, this is the same as it is all the time. Just me blabbering and the guy or whoever I'm with going, oh my God, what did I get myself in for?
You've actually done better this time than before, so I think you're improving.
Oh, it just seems like that. I don't even know who we're talking about. I wander around my little basement office and then come back to my monitor and look, oh yeah, Robert Asprin. You wrote some books. Anyway, but yeah, man, I think that'd be cool. If you owned the first rights of Odin's Reward, it would just sit on your website. I would get the rights back. I could do whatever I want with the story. Because basically, what I've noticed is a lot of these. I mean, obviously, if you're going to send a story out to like a Clark's World or a Asimov or Science and Fantasy or whatever it is, they want it never to be published anywhere. Yeah. Right.
And that's why I take secondary rights.
Right. Exactly. Oh, you take secondary rights.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you've had something published, I'm more than willing to publish it again.
Oh, okay. Well, interesting. But you also have taken my first rights too on some stuff, right? Or what are they called? First publishing rights. Odin's Reward and Sebastian's Baby. I think now, because they've been published by you, they're already published.
Well, I've definitely taken the first auditory rights. So I have not published them in the written form. So you could still potentially shop around the first. I don't know. Maybe that is considered.
I think it is, man. Some of these publications are like, don't have it anywhere. Don't have it anywhere. Don't have it published on Reddit. Don't have it published on Twitter. Don't have it published anywhere.
Yeah, I know it doesn't count for Amazon because a lot of people, publish their book on Amazon exclusive or whatever, where they can't publish it anywhere else. Well, you can if it's audio. So I can still publish those stories.
Oh, hell, man. If I get published someplace and they want me to have it read by somebody and they give me the option, I'll definitely send you an email. I've already offered that to you. Sweet. I like your work.
I'm actually starting up my ACX account here in a couple weeks, hopefully.
What's that?
Oh, ACX is the Audible meeting place for authors and narrators.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's really cool watching this kind of develop. I guess it's been over a year now, huh? Since we're close to a year that we've had our first podcast. And it's been neat seeing how it's kind of progressed for you. And we got another year ahead of us, and it looks like things are just going to get better. So
here's hoping.
Yeah, right. I mean, put forth effort for that to happen only. Do you want to schedule something now or just hit it up later? I'm thinking August or September, probably August. I'd like to, if you want, at least do one a month.
Let me take a look at my calendar. I'll get back to you. Just make sure you don't let me forget.
Sure. When do you want me to circle back around to you? Like in a couple of weeks or?
Yeah, a week or two. If I haven't hit you back in a week or two, let me know.
All right, cool. All right, man. Awesome conversation as usual. I look forward to the next one.
Sounds great. Thank
All
you.
right, man. Have a good night.
You too.